I Wanna Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes.
Okay, so my guest today is really making bags of noise out in my pretty much adoptive home of Austin, Texas. I mean, this is now the fourth guest that I've had based that lives in Austin. And he's a powerhouse of a drummer. And together with his band, Future Death, is to me really, kind of linchpin of this really creative and experimental scene that's going on in Austin. He's also working with TaSz Muerte of BLXPLTN, who you might remember from one of the earlier episodes at the start of I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee. And he's working with them on a new project called For Money, which we're going to talk about. So we're kind of fusing lots of different elements to create this music that really, to me, can't be put in a box. And I know I bang on about this, but this is where the really exciting stuff is happening. It can't be put in a box. You can't really sort of attach a genre to it, which I think is really the way that things need to go, because that's where the exciting stuff is happening. So it's a big welcome to Alton Jenkins. Alton, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude.
Good. How are you doing? All right.
Yeah, doing well, man. Just been looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So it's obviously the last, kind of 18 months has, from a music perspective, has been sort of quite difficult. And Future Death brought out an album in 2020, which was Holy Fingers, if I'm not mistaken. Have you been able to, kind of take that live yet?
So yeah, that album was kind of like a one-off thing. Future Death kind of dissolved, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And we still had, a bunch of recordings that hadn't been released, and we just kind of sat with it. And, 2020 comes around, and I'm like, we had already started making plans to either revive Future Death or to start a new project.
Yeah.
Look, how about this? We can't play live shows. There's not a whole lot we can do, but let's mix these songs and let's put it together and release it. So that's what we did, and that kind of gave us something to do last year while we were just sitting on our couch. I would say the highlight of that, I think most of the songs were previously recorded. A few of them we did new last year, a couple of electronic tracks, and then we featured this guy named Aaron Ross. On the first song, and it's a pretty kind of surreal experience working with him, because early on, when I was in my 18, 19 years old, I was a big fan, and still am a big fan of Hella, which is a math rock band from that era. And Aaron Ross appeared on one of the albums, and I was for many years just a big fan of that band. A huge fan of the album that he was on, which is called There's No 666 in Outer Space.
Yeah.
So that was more than a decade. It was almost 13 years ago, or however long ago. And, and then maybe 5 years ago or so, I don't remember how it happened, but I ended up chatting with Aaron Ross on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
And I professed my love to him, and he told me that he respected my work. And that was kind of the end of it, right? We acknowledged each other. And I was like, okay, hell yeah. One of my heroes, someone I look up to, is acknowledging me. And
today's a good day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And then years later, I was like, hey, I have a song. Would you want to put vocals over it? And he was so down. He was so into it. And he did it. He laid it down. And that kind of put some fire behind that release for us. And of course, it's such a privilege to work with him. He's such a cool dude. And honestly, like you're saying, we kind of make music that can't be put in a box. It's kind of all over the place. It's not massively appealing music. We don't make a lot of money making this type of music. We kind of get our joy out of just making it.
Yeah.
And I think so for me, I define my success through experiences like that, when I get to work with an artist who I love, or get to tour with bands that I really like, or whatever. Like that was a big moment. So yeah, we put out that release, Holy Fingers, that album last year, and it did pretty well for us. And then, shortly after that, we got with TaSz.
Yeah.
We were shopping around for people, and like TaSz and I had played together before. I mean, I filled in on drums for BLXPLTN a few times. We did Afropunk Fest together, played some shows. And like TaSz and I have just always kind of vibed and like always respected each other. And like, I always wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
He happened to be like totally available. And yeah, we just got together, I guess like late 2020, and started writing.
Well, that's how we got introduced through TaSz. Who was kind of saying, look, you've got to get Alton on the show, and sort of have a chat. I hugely respect him and doing some really, really sort of interesting stuff. So that in itself is amazing. And then to hear that you're now kind of like sort of working with TaSz on the new project, which is Fuck Money, is kind of awesome. And you very kindly sent me a track last night to have a listen to, which is, I think I said, brutally beautiful or beautifully brutal. You just sort of like use those sort of interchangeably. But again, it's like this kind of like very kind of powerful, visceral music that again is sort of experimental and hard to put in a box. How did this all kind of work out for you guys then?
Yeah, as far as like, I mean, there wasn't like a heavy. We never really go into writing with like heavy concepts or ideas. Really more so come in with like, okay, what is the attitude of this? I mean, at least the way that, I play drums, I'm channeling, trauma through it. I'm channeling, aggression through it, things that otherwise, if we're bottled up and left inside, would probably manifest in not good ways. So like, just throughout my day, I'm like a really chill, happy, relaxed person. But when I write music, like a lot of that kind of organic, therapeutic kind of process happens. So it was like, we knew what TaSz had to offer. We knew what kind of energy he had, and we knew that energy could match us.
Yeah.
And, as far as the writing process is concerned, with Future Death and with Fuck Money, it starts on the drums usually. I kind of go in and just like write sort of like impulsive, like hysterical kind of like, just like, impulsive, driven kind of like body and rhythmic movements that create percussive sounds. And then I try to make sense of it, and I try to piece it together in a way that can be musical rhythmically. And so it's usually like, ends up being like very melodic drumming. So it's like, it's fast, it's busy, there's a lot of elements to it. It's kind of technical and complicated or whatever. And then I'll usually write those parts, and I'll kind of like feel it, and then I'll show it to my guitar players, and then it's almost like they fill in the space. Like I give them like the framework, and they kind of like fill in all the colors and all the space in between, and then we just like agree on stuff. So we recorded, me, Bill, and Jeremy, who are my guitarists from Future Death. They're in Fuck Money as well. And we wrote like 7 songs and basically like demoed them, sent them to TaSz. And like TaSz just, I don't know, he just like worked his magic on it. I think for him, he had never really worked on a project that was as like musically technical. But he really like stood up to that challenge and like found this, I don't know. He really found something within himself creatively. And I think like what he landed on is just like a really special thing. I feel like he really like captured all of the energy and attitude that we wanted to get out of the vocals and what we wanted to kind of like pair with the music. So in the demos, and he just crushed it. He worked on it all by himself at home, and then he just like showed up at practice. He showed up at the rehearsal space and was just like singing the songs. um, so he's easy to work with. I just love that guy. Like, we have like a genuine camaraderie, like a genuine respect for each other. I just like being around him. And, we get to play shows together soon, hopefully. So,
I mean, that was, I mean, you know, kind of one of the things I think is kind of important. I'd be interested in your view on it, on the, you know, kind of people that you surround yourself with. I mean, you know, as we know, there's a huge amount of kind of polarization going on in the world, and you know, people struggle, I think, sometimes with some people, and you know, it sounds like there you've got the right people around you, you know, from both a creative point of view and also just a kind of mental health point of view, that these are the people that I need.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, there's always some sort of work that needs to be done. Everyone, you know, no relationship is like perfect, right? No one
ticks, be perfect, yeah.
Nobody ticks every box. But I mean, I've been playing with Jeremy and Bill since 2013. I love those guys. And yeah, we are on the same page, you know, in like a socio-political aspect, in like a, you know, in like a mental health awareness aspect. Like we're definitely like very progressive in that sense. So we get along in that way. I don't think I could be creative with someone who wasn't at least kind of like in the ballpark of like how I feel about what I think are like very fundamental things that we should be paying attention to, you know, mindfulness, communication, setting boundaries, communicating consent and things like that, you know. TaSz is on the same page, you know. He's on the same page with us as far as that's concerned. So those things help the music. It helps the relationship in every way. So I couldn't create with someone who wasn't on that.
Didn't have that. Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think it's quite important, man. I think as well, you know, I've sort of seen that, you know, people kind of grow apart as well. And, you know, I remember like my parents, you know, they would almost like have friends for life, or, you know, kind of people that, you know, I'm not sure that happens as much these days, that, you know, perhaps people's identity, you know, shifts a lot, you know, and sort of shifts a lot more, that, you know, kind of relationships shift with them as well. And, you know, you kind of move in and out of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much to navigate, you know. There's so much information available to us. Obviously there's so many shifts in just like how we, you know, perceive the world and like perceive ourselves. And yeah, I mean, it's good that people are finding more agency to decide whether they want to cultivate and maintain a relationship or whether they don't. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think over time people will get better at, you know, letting their egos down a little bit and learning. So instead of losing a friendship, maybe they can grow instead of.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. That's it's just all really complicated, I guess. But I think overall people are just becoming more complex and there's just more to navigate. But I think the results of that are better, or they will be, hopefully.
I mean, going back, you know, to your childhood, or, you know, sort of way back. I mean, what were the you know, your kind of like influences, your sort of formative influences or experiences that kind of started to shape your, you know, the way that you thought about the world?
Right. I mean, yeah, I feel like that. I feel like that changes every year. I think there's some things that I've stuck with, you know, for the last decade or so, just some ways of, I don't know, ways of just kind of like processing and synthesizing, just like the way that I view the world. But I don't know, like when I was younger, you know, pretty normal. I'm from San Antonio. TaSz is also from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Grew up in San Antonio, you know, like regular middle class. And I wasn't really conscious of music. I wasn't like a conscious music listener up probably until I was like 16 or 17. So like, you know, early on, you know, my parents, they enjoyed music enough. You know, we would dance. You know, my mom would ask me to dance and stuff for, you know, whatever, like little things like that. But there was not like a heavy music influence. It was also was more so expected to like play sports,
right?
And, like be on more of like a straight and narrow path.
Mm.
Because I mean, bluntly put, like I'm a black man in this country where like, you know, you have to work 10 times harder to get kind of like the bare minimum, you know what I mean? And so my parents come from a generation where it's like, yeah, you don't deviate from your path, you don't fuck around, you don't take risks.
Yeah.
You need to do this thing that's going to get you security. It's going to get you status that is acceptable to pretty much like some sort of like white American standard.
Yeah.
So I played sports. I was expected to kind of fulfill that. And so I didn't become conscious of music until high school. I started dating a girl who was you know, came from a completely different background, like a very creative music and art background, a very spiritual, kind of like hippie, I guess you could call it, like background. So she exposed me to a lot of things, and she kind of helped me open my mind up to a lot. So well, actually, I skipped a part. My sister was a big influence. My sister exposed me to like metal and like alternative rock up until that point. Yeah. So I'd say early on, I listened to like a lot of like Master P and like Missy Elliott, Line, like kind of the popular stuff. Then it evolved into like, you know, Alice in Chains and Nirvana. And then in high school, I started listening to just like more obscure, more abstract, kind of more challenging music. Yeah. Because the person I was dating, she was already into that, and she kind of she exposed me to like the punk and metal scene in San Antonio, which is like, you know, really big. And the way it happened really was like I was around some people who were musicians who weren't serious musicians, but they played for enjoyment. They played music as a way to like escape and connect. I had you know, some friends of mine who were kind of like low income, who didn't have a lot to do, but they had some things. They had instruments. They had, you know, some things to kind of keep them busy. And I just like realized that they were finding this kind of profound fulfillment thing. And I had never really had anything like that in my life. You know, I didn't know that you could communicate through an instrument. Yeah. And so that around 17, 18 years old opened my world up. And, you know, I started kind of, I quit sports, and, you know, I started sneaking into the band hall, trying to watch the drummers play. I like kind of like immediately attached myself to percussion, and you know, I just loved it. You know, when something like you're saying, you couldn't imagine not doing podcasts now, like you love doing work, it just kind of immediately spoke to you. Same with drumming, and you know, I was kind of started inviting myself to these little random jam sessions that these people were having, you know, in their garages, in their bedrooms. I would just invite myself. I just invited myself because I wanted to be around it. And then I got so immersed in it that I just like, you know, I dedicated all of my time to it. And,
How did it, when you sort of first, when those doors sort of first open, you know, the girl that you were dating, and she's, you know, sort of into the obscure music, and then you start to become aware of this whole kind of like other world, almost, that kind of, how did you feel then? You know, when you you know, it's like, wow, what was your reaction to it? Obviously you dived straight into it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I woke up it was like being born, you know. It was like similar to the feelings people probably get when, you know, like if someone's like practices religion or practices something like deeply spiritual, those feelings of euphoria, those feelings of belonging, the feeling of just like being grounded and feeling like a purpose. Yeah. It just really, really touched me in a way that I had never even felt before. And I was in it. And it wasn't like, my goal wasn't to play shows or be a rock star or anything. I just wanted to hang out with people and just make noises, you know, like before I got a drum set, I was just banging on bongos and like little Casio keyboards and stuff, and like recording these shitty songs on like these little like Microsoft computer microphones. With my good friend of mine, his name is Rick Cantu. He's a guitar player. He was the kid who kind of always had the guitar strapped to his back
Yeah.
at school, wherever he was, he always had a guitar strapped to him. And he kind of like took me in as like oh, you want to learn how to drum? Well, I'll play guitar while you learn how to drum. And like we just built a lot of good experiences together. I
remember when I was maybe about I think when I first started going to, you know, kind of like record shops. I mean, I was maybe, I don't know, 12 or 13. I mean, I'm 53 now, and like, so it was probably about 1980, 81, stuff like that. I remember going in and seeing, you know, kind of like sort of 7-inch covers of, and then the, you know, the kind of like the 12-inch album covers or whatever, of stuff like Dead Kennedys and Susie and the Banshees and sort of Adam and the Ants and Killing Joke, and there was just like the covers themselves, just the artwork on the covers. It was just like this, wow, it's just like this kind of labyrinth that I just wanted to explore. I mean, it was just almost like sort of surreal, you know, just sort of seeing this stuff, and it's just like, wow, this looks completely different to what my life is.
Yeah, I had those moments too. You know, more so just like sonically, like, you know, I started, well, actually the person that I was with, the girl who kind of like opened my consciousness to music, her, believe it or not, her mom bought me my first drum set on my 17th birthday. She bought me a brand new drum set.
Wow.
Because like she saw that this thing was happening to me, right? Yeah. Like she saw that I was just like falling in love with drumming and with music. Yeah. And she wanted to like foster that. I should try to locate her and thank her. But you know, from that point on, I mean, my whole life has been dedicated to drumming and music. And you know, there were bands around that time. I feel like I jumped, you know, right into just like this really just like bizarre, like avant-garde, like, you know, heavy music and like prog rock and math rock. Like I think one of the first bands I got into when I started drumming was Don Caballero.
Yeah.
She's like, you know, OG like math rock, kind of kicking off math rock era. Obviously, like this is, you know, beyond King Crimson and Mahavishnu, and the kind of like 70s, 80s like math prog rock era. Like Don Caballero was one of those first bands. I was like, damn, I want to drum like that. You know, it just, it's weird. I feel like I immediately attached to like wanting to make things that were just unfamiliar and explored it and just like challenging, you know. And so, yeah, that's where it all started. And I kind of never got off of that.
Where do you think that came from? That, you know, kind of desire to do the unconventional?
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I think it was just an organic.
I mean, sometimes you just kind of get attracted to it. It just appeals. It's hard to put your finger on it, isn't it? Yeah.
There was a level of adventure and like and sincerity that came from it. Like I was saying, I didn't really have like a sort of like a vanity or like any kind of like vain. I wasn't driven by like, you know, by any kind of like rock star or any kind of like, just like image stuff. I was more so driven by like this, what I detected was like a level of, like I was saying, adventure and kind of just like unfamiliarity. I don't really know where that came from. Maybe because my life prior to that was all kind of like based on expectations and like familiarity and just like things that like provided comfort, which are awesome. I love that as well. But when I'm writing music, I have to do something that that's new, at least new to me.
Perhaps it's like kind of breaking out of the conventional to kind of unconventional. That's you kind of almost like trying to release from what you were brought up with to doing the stuff that, you know, kind of, I don't know, perhaps sort of part of your, you know, finding your identity. This is what I want to do. This is me putting my sort of stamp on it. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, of course, it would have been easy to kind of like blend into the scene, just like, you know, play in the types of bands that everyone else was playing in. But, you know, I was like, I just wasn't interested in that. I felt like I had my own story to tell, I guess what it was. Like, okay, like I have a unique story. This is me. And I need it to be fully realized.
And that scene that you sort of broke into, I mean, what did that sort of give you? What's, you know, again, what were the sort of what was the mindset of the people in that scene, and how did that help you kind of develop? I sense a story coming along here.
There's an Austin band, this heavy band called Glassing.
Yeah.
You should talk to one of those guys. But we kind of like, me and a couple of dudes from that band kind of came up in the scene in San Antonio, you know, prog rock, math rock scene. It was, I guess, like 2008 to like 2012, there were 13 maybe. There was just like this movement of math rock, right? And we were kind of like joking about the other day, you know, he was like, man, why did you guys ever let me play in like a 2-piece, you know, rock band, you know? I feel like I wasted all this time, whatever, right? But anyway, so there was like a drummer scene. There were like all these drummers who,
right,
it wasn't competitive, it was in good spirit, but you know, it was kind of like you go to a show and like hope to see like a sick drummer just like shred, you know, like someone absolutely shred. So there was like a lot of that energy, and you know, a lot of those drummers even still to this day still play that way, but have kind of pursued like more tasteful avenues, or tasteful is not the right word, but like different avenues of music, and kind of like with the same attitude, like, you know, let's not stagnate, let's not stick to just this thing. You can carry your chops and your musical kind of like proficiency into different styles and kind of evolve in that way. So it always stuck with me, you know. They kind of like, I feel like that was like the fastest I ever grew, was being in this circle of like, you know, super technical, crazy, ratchy drummers, and you know, like being like in that scene, like the punk, like math, metal scene, like being black in that scene in San Antonio was like a big deal. And I felt like because I was one of the few in that scene who was doing that, I think there was part of me that was like, all right, this is like my legacy. I have something to prove. I obviously I love this, but I want to like empower people like me to get out of whatever it is, not to force themselves out of it, but if they feel inspired or compelled to express themselves through music, and through music that they're, you know, maybe not expected to do. Yeah. Be part of that like Afro punk. Yeah. Kind of like empowerment and like reclamation of these things. And I knew that I was doing something important. Yeah. By not conforming to.
And to say to people that you know, there is a choice. You know, this is an alternative if you want to try it.
Yeah exactly.
I mean the you know, the what about like you going into that sort of scene, breaking away from norm? What about your, you know, kind of self-belief? Did that sort of waver? Were you just sort of like, you know, going sort of very confident of what you were doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I started, I just latched on to the emotion that I was getting out of it. I was getting this, it was just so meditative. It still is, but it was just like really like a deep meditative experience. So I was really just, it was just kind of like a, you know, full immersion of like good feelings. And then once I started really drumming and people started, you know, kind of noticing me, I think I became more self-aware. What my role was or what I was doing and what I wanted. I started kind of formulating what I wanted to accomplish. And yeah, that definitely wavered a few times. I mean, like, I think I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm making this really kind of obscure music, but damn, I sure would love to like make money as a drummer. So I took a couple of shots with a couple of like random bands that had like commercial appeal. I was like, oh, let me see if I can like cross over into this and kind of balance both worlds and see if I can get paid over here, but also like make my art on the other end. So if there was any wavering, it was in that. I wanted to see if I could make like a, you know, a monetary kind of like return on it, because I wanted to, I was just kind of like, man, I don't want to be like a starving artist forever. You know what I mean? I kind of felt that way. And definitely I have tons of stories about being a starving artist and like, you know, living without, you know, because I was willing, I was like, I'll sacrifice everything, you know, to make this music. It was that important to me for a long time. And a lot of people probably feel that same way, but I was never able to like establish like a good system to make a bit of money. But I mean, all that was necessary. Those are all character building experiences.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You know, with you know, trying to sort of blend that, you know, to make a living, but you know, by doing your art, and you know, kind of quite often sort of compromises, you know, to be made that perhaps need to be made, and also when you're brought up with that, you know, sort of through your parents, as my parents did, you know, about, you know, kind of instilling this sort of thing about financial security, trying to, you know, be cautious and, you know, and this sort of stuff. So you have something to, you know, if things go wrong to sort of fall back with. I think probably a lot of people sort of feel the same, you know, about that. I mean, how did you sort of find trying to, you know, balance those, that you kind of go, artistically, this is the direction you want to go. You're kind of balancing that with trying to, you know, sort of make money as well.
Yeah. So like, you know, I kind of, like I was saying, I tried to pursue musical endeavors that like could potentially like pay some bills.
Yeah.
That didn't really work. It didn't pan out, mainly because I just was unhappy
doing it.
That music.
Yeah.
I did it for several years, and you know, I was like, man, I was unhappy, and I was just like, man, I'm done. Like, I'm done. You know, giving up my happiness for this shit. So I actually just like went all the way to one end and kind of went off the deep end, and I was like, I'm only making the type of music that I want to make, and I'm going to push it. And that's what started Future Death.
This is interesting because I think that you know, if you like a lot of people in kind of regular sort of paid jobs, you know, doing, you know, where they're employed, you know, they're getting a, you know, kind of weekly, monthly wage or whatever, you know, stuck in, you know, kind of jobs that they're either sort of, they're not secure, they're not safe, or they're just shit as well. You know, and they're kind of sort of stuck doing that, and, you know, really miserable doing it, and looking elsewhere and saying, I want to kind of break out of this, and it's sort of tough.
It is. And you know, like, I was lucky. I had this a job at this coffee shop in Austin, and the owner, rest in peace, Cody Symington, good friend of mine. He was a musician as well. And like, he knew what I was experiencing. And I was like, look, I need a job that I can come back home to after tour. Yeah. Everywhere else I had worked, it was like, hey, I have to go on tour for 3 weeks. They'd be like, okay, you're fired. but Cody and the managers there, they were like, yo, when you come back from tour, you have a job. And I was like, well, shit. So like, I got Future Death going, and I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on tour. I'm going to come back, work at this coffee shop, go on tour, and just kind of back and forth. And, you know, it wasn't like a glamorous life, but what made me happy was the fact that I had created a musical project that I was like completely fulfilled by creatively. Yeah. And I was able to, for several years, like to tour with that band. And so like, you know, we got, you know, about as much success as you can get for like a band like that, you know, as far as like recognition and just like press and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I managed that for a little while, and it was really cool. Yeah.
About how much do you, when you're, you know, kind of, you know, in whatever, you know, sort of walk of life, you know, whether it's your sort of personal life, or, you know, your music, you know, do you rely on gut instinct? How important is that to you?
Relying on gut instinct when like composing music.
Yeah, or you know, kind of like, because I mean, you know, there have been times like when I've done stuff, and I've, you know, maybe perhaps agreed to something because somebody else has said something, and then I thought, do you know what, my gut instinct is telling me something different, and I don't say it, And I thought, I wish that I'd just kind of gone with my gut, because that was probably right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am. I mean, there's a balance, but I think generally, like, I can trust my gut instinct. But if we're talking, you know, specifically about just like music, visions around that, yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of intuition that's involved there. I mean, even just like in the writing process, you know, just trying not to think too much about how I'm approaching certain things, and just kind of like letting things, you know, be organic, or just like trusting kind of like whatever that like inner voice is.
Yeah. If that kind of doesn't work, you know, and you kind of get the block, and it's like, oh, fuck, I don't know where this is going. Yeah. You know, how do you handle that? Do you handle it well? Do you just like get frustrated, or you just say, okay, this is kind of part of the process, and walk away? And
like if I'm feeling some sort of block, if I'm feeling
or things aren't working, you're not particularly happy with what you create.
Yeah, I just like kind of have the expectation that like after I've made something, a couple years down the road, I'm gonna hate it. I've just accepted that. But what's more important to me is just getting it out. And so yeah, this might sound kind of ridiculous or extreme, but like I don't really, I guess I'm not susceptible to the idea of like writer's block or creative. Okay. I don't really buy into that. I mean, I believe that it happens, but I also, like you were saying, I believe that it's like part of the process. I think there's a silver lining in all of it. I think there's always something to be drawn from, even if it's something you can't really like imagine what that thing is. Yeah, the block never really happens.
Never really happens for you.
It happens, but it doesn't actually block me. It's like I see it up ahead. I'm like, okay, here we're about to hit this like roadblock or plateau or whatever. Yeah. But then, like, if I hit that point, I just like make something out of that. You know, it's just like new clay to work with. So yeah, I'm not vulnerable to that particularly. I feel like I never run out of ideas.
Run out of ideas. Fantastic.
And so it's kind of obnoxious, but it just is that way. I don't know.
It's kind of like a sort of massive sort of vomit of ideas that are just sort of constantly sort of coming out.
Well, you know, it's more linear. It's not so much throwing it all at the wall. I think it's just kind of like you're kind of just like, it's just like as you go, you know, and it's just like the momentum kind of never stops. It like always sort of sustains itself. Sometimes it's more volatile than other moments, but there's never been a moment where like I have to stop, you know, or like I can't do any, there's nowhere I can go. There's always somewhere to go.
Are you self-taught?
Yeah.
As a drummer, you self-taught. Because I wonder if that sort of helps, because you I'm guessing as sort of self-taught, you don't really have any rules.
Yeah.
You know, or kind of frameworks.
Yeah, I think you just kind of summed up what I was trying to say. I guess that is what it is. It's like there are no rules, right? Yeah, there's no right or wrong way. I mean, like, of course you have like music theory, and I think music theory can support a musician, and it can open a lot of doors for you. But from just like an abstract sense, just from a purely creative sense, there are no rules. And I think my music speaks to that. You know what I mean? It's like you can do whatever you want. You can make whatever you want. It all just depends on what your priorities are, what you want. I mean, people make music for all sorts of reasons, you know. My reason for making music is simply to communicate and just to feel good, and to in some ways, prove that there's no rules, and like it doesn't really matter, you know, kind of like what people expect from you. There's comfort and familiarity with a lot of music. That's why people latch onto like pop music and certain things. And a lot of people kind of like they find what they like and they stick with that, which I get it. But that's just not how I am. I mean, I like to explore and find new things. So yeah, being self-taught probably plays a part in that. You know, there wasn't anyone telling me, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. I was like, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like doing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, we were talking just before we sort of started recording about, you know, a band that I know, like a certain ratio that you know, they're one example of a band that sort of brings in different ideas and influences and experiences, and sort of puts them into a pot, and then sort of sees where it goes. And this sort of speaks to in the intro, and I'm saying that, you know, the music that you've done so far and that you're doing with TaSz, there's no sort of genre, and like I think as like sort of human beings, we like to put things into kind of compartments, and it helps us just kind of close things off. That there's no loose end. Okay, that's metal, that's punk, you know, that's a funk sound,
Right.
You know, and that's not happening anywhere near as much these days. I think that there is a lot more cross genre. I'm falling into that trap of using genres, but you know, kind of like these different influences that are just impossible to put into those boxes. And you know, at the very least, you know, kind of like when you go into a record shop, the frustrating thing is you go and look in a particular section where you think it's going to be, and it's not in there. And it's like, fuck, where is it then?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I think this is like the most exciting time for music. I think there's probably like some old heads, or just like kind of like some people stuck in their ways and their beliefs, who would say, oh, music's just not what it used to be. And like, when I hear people say that, I'm just like, ah, man, you really are missing out, you know? Because like there's just so many voices to be heard, you know? Like there's so many like talented people who, like you're saying, are crossing genres or whatever, or just making whatever they feel compelled to make, or whatever kind of naturally like erupts inside of them. But it's an exciting time. Like I can discover 10 new bands every day, and like kind of like have an experience. And I think a lot of it is like with a lot of these cross genres and a lot of like more challenging music coming out. It's like it requires attention, right? Like you have to pay attention to it, or at least I can speak for like some of the music I'm into or the music I make. Like you can't really passively listen to it. Yeah, maybe after you've built a relationship with these types of music, sure, you can like just click it on and like go about doing your chores around your apartment. But I think like with a lot of the music that I'm into and what I'm making, with what a lot of these new artists are making, is require attention. It's like if you paid to go to an art museum, you're not just gonna like walk through the door and walk through the back door and not stop and think about what you're looking at. You want to think about the story of the artist. You want to think about their process. You want to look at the art and understand it. And I think music being treated more as art instead of a commodity is really important. And I think we're in an era that's like pushing more towards that. Even on a mainstream level, I think that's happening. So
it's kind of I agree with you. And I think it is important to do that. That, you know, kind of artists can sort of shift that, you know, music away from the commoditization into a sort of pure art form. I wonder if the challenge is that because so much of the rest of our lives is about kind of like immediacy and, you know, kind of like having things now and sort of understanding things now, that, like you're saying, I totally agree with you that some of the music that's coming out now, the interesting music needs more time to think about what is going on. It's not something that will kind of immediately come to you.
Right. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not like like an elitist in that way. I think it's all important, you know, like every style of music from anywhere in the world, any genre, I think it's all important and serves a really crucial kind of it's just important to like the overall of music and the way people can consume music. I mean, maybe because we are in such like an era where, like, you know, of instant gratification, you know, like kind of like instantaneous everything. Maybe with some music going in kind of like maybe, I don't know, maybe we need that one thing that kind of does require your attention, right? But
Yeah.
I love pop music, and I indulge in like top 40 music just as much as I do the most, obscure, like weird shit that I also listen to. Like I have never, limited myself. I feel like I would never limit myself to any type of music that I can get to know. Whether I think it's shallow or whether I think it's deep, like there's something to gain from it.
I think as well. I mean, we're like as a population, we're kind of like living longer, so that there are sort of more generations. I think now more than ever there are. I don't know what the number is, probably 4 generations that are kind of living right now. So the sort of experiences of each generation collectively is sort of so wide. And I wonder that, and also we've got, like, musically, we've got much more, many more collaborations going on, generally sort of speaking. And I wonder the how much, sort of intergenerational collaboration is going on, and what the, sort of benefits, that can bring.
Shit. Yeah, totally. The first thing that comes to mind is Tyler, the Creator, and Charlie Wilson.
Yes.
So, I mean, Tyler, the Creator, I guess a couple years ago came out with an album called Igor, which is a work of art. That guy, I think is just like fucking amazing. I think he's doing really cool shit. I think he's pushing a lot of boundaries. I think he's doing some really important, like, making really important cultural moves. Just like everything he does is just kind of like to this level of like a perfection that I admire. But we're talking about crossing generations. I mean, Charlie Wilson's probably 70 years old. I mean, he's old school, like my parents and maybe my grandparents know who Charlie Wilson is.
Yeah.
He's prolific. He's one of the most talented, soul, like kind of R&B singers, we've ever seen. One of the greatest songwriters. And Tyler, the Creator, who's like probably younger than me, is making these just like making beautiful music with this person. And I think that's probably why it has come out to be such an incredible product, is because, there's like such a heavy crossover and influence, but they've married their ideas and just like made something completely unique. So that is like the first thing I think about. I think that is like the epitome of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. As far as like in like, more of like the punk or like kind of like punk adjacent scene that I'm in, I don't really know. I don't really have an answer to like where or whether that's happening. I'm sure it is. Probably less of an extreme in like the styles and like kind of the interest, less of a difference, but
maybe those are sort of a bit more subtle. I don't know. Well, you mentioned like, just sort of going back a while. You mentioned about kind of what drumming gives you. It gives you the kind of like physically, it's it's kind of tough, right? Isn't it? But kind of like sort of mentally, and this kind of like release for your kind of aggressions. That's what drumming is doing for you. That it's that's a real release valve, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have like some unmanageable like
no
aggression or like I'm not like dealing with some like demons or anything. I mean, they're
just for the record, he definitely doesn't. There's nothing there.
Yeah, I'm I mean, I will say like I can say I will admit that I have like a bit of a dependence on drumming. Like I depend on it the way someone would depend on like seeing their therapist or going to church or it's a religious meditative kind of like centering experience. So I get the physical exertion, but there's also like a spiritual and mental aspect that kind of ties into it. So really it just grounds me and it bounces me and it makes the rest of my life better. And it just kind of, that's just how it started and just the way that it's always been. So you know, even if I never, you know, released another album or never played another show, if I could still go into my studio and play drums and write music, like I would be very much like fulfilled. I would still be pretty happy.
Yeah. From a creativity point of view, and then sort of constantly sort of pushing boundaries, what is it that sort of keeps you motivated to sort of keep doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just like I'm motivated. I mean, like the previous point, what motivates me is the fact that like I can't live without it, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I can't not do it. Yeah, I just can't not do it. I have to do it because these things are kind of, these ideas are just like always bubbling up to the surface in my mind. Like it just has to happen. So that's what keeps me driven. It has to happen. But then outside of myself, there are other things. I mean, you know, it's nice to make something and then have someone, like we were talking about earlier, have someone that you idolized recognize your music or show you love or buy a record from you, or like, you know, if I get like a message in my, you know, Facebook Messenger or Instagram, someone being like, hey, like I listened to your album, or I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and like you've helped me get through some shit, you know, like outside of myself, like I see the importance of like, all right, if my music reaches and positively impacts like even just one person, or there's some sort of like return, you know, of some sort of appreciation, like that stuff definitely is like a nice addition to the whole experience. It's like a bonus. It's like, so I would say that those things lift me up too, you know, that inspires me, and what I represent is a big inspiration as well, you know, just who I am, the world that we live in, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. I feel like it's important to kind of like to just empowering people like me. Like I feel like there's a lot of significance in what I'm doing, how what I represent, I guess. So there are a lot of things outside of me that are that play a part in that inspiration too.
Yeah. So what's next then? What's coming up in the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Well, fuck money. Or as TaSz would say, fuck money.
That's a nice commercial name if ever I've heard one.
Exactly. Fuck it. But I mean, that explains itself, right? So
absolutely.
You know, we have all these songs recorded, and now we're just kind of like planning our debut and release. So we'll be debuting hopefully in the next month. Yeah. Debuting our first single, and then we're gonna try to book our first show maybe like September. I mean, depending on how like we are with COVID or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's happening. You know, we're gonna start that whole thing. We have plans for how we want to deliver music and stuff, but yeah, it'll be out and available soon for people to dig into. I'm really excited about it. I mean, this music, this is like my favorite project. This is the best thing I feel like I've ever done. It's like the most fully realized like music I've ever been part of. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
That must be a really incredible feeling to realize that, you know, to kind of see that, and that feeling that you get that this is kind of it. I was talking to when I recorded another episode the other night, and we're just kind of talking about, you know, sometimes like on a track, you just hear something and you just go to yourself, yeah, that's it. Yeah. It just sort of hits some sort of spot, and that's kind of it. And that might be different for me, might be different for you, but that kind of just hits it and it does it.
Yeah, that definitely happens, whether you're listening to someone else's music or your own music. Sometimes it is like pretty instantaneous, but I will say I've had probably more experiences where I heard something and I felt like it was important, but I also felt like I wasn't into it until I revisited it And on like the fourth or fifth, sixth time revisiting it, then it like finally clicked, and then became like a really important part of my just like understanding of music and like my just like, I guess, wheelhouse of just like the shit that I listen to. So some of my absolute favorite artists, like it didn't speak to me immediately. And then just my sheer curiosity, and I don't know, for me, I have to understand why. Like if I don't like something, like I want to understand why I don't like it. And oftentimes when I understand why I don't like it, I end up liking it, because it forces me to build a different type of relationship with the music.
Yeah.
Because music is so contextual. It's like, it's really dictated by where you are. It's dictated by where you are. I mean, very broadly, where in your head, where you are physically, where you are.
Yeah.
There's like context that dictates how music speaks to you. So if I change the context and I change my understanding of who the artist is, get to know them better, then like, you know, a lot of times that changes in like a really profound way.
I think that is what you made there is a really important point. The like kind of curiosity, which I think is something that we need more of, and that idea of like why don't I like something? I don't like it. I don't feel like, well, why? And I think that is really important, because that, to me, that says that you kind of got curiosity. You've also got kind of empathy for understanding, trying to, you know, kind of understand why. And once you understand why, then there's going to be some kind of positive action that sort of comes out of that.
Yeah.
You know, rather than just sort of, I don't like it and dismissing it, which is almost like sometimes a default that people have. And maybe there's a fear thing why they push it to one side.
Right.
But what you're saying is like, I'm curious to understand why I don't like it, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it happened the first time I was aware of that I was probably like 17 or 18, and I heard, I think it was Hella for the first time. This is like the most extreme example, but I heard Hella for the first time. And if anyone that knows me knows that like Zach Hill, who I think is one of the most important artists, drummers of our lifetime, he's one of, you know, I look up to this guy, like he's incredible. But anyway, when I first heard Hella, even though I was already like really involved in math rock and prog rock, I heard Hella and I was like, nah. I don't know. I couldn't explain why, but I was like, yeah, it didn't fit into my expectation of what I thought it should be. But then over like the course of a couple years after, I revisited, and then finally it clicked, and I was like, oh shit, this is what it is. And then kind of like from that point on, I've treated everything else kind of the same way. And there are times where like I spend time with something and revisit it, and I'm just like, okay, nah, like this isn't important. This isn't important to me, at least. It doesn't hit me. And sometimes that happens too, and it's fine. You just move on. But I can at least live with the fact that like I've kind of at least given it somewhat of a chance. Yeah,
brilliant. I love that. I think that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Listen, thank you so much for your time. I think that was amazing. That was really interesting to listen to you and you know, get some really important stuff from you. I think that's been really, really exciting.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, man.
Brilliant. Thanks, man. I wish you the best of luck with TaSz as well. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of it.
Oh yeah. Can't wait. Hopefully we can connect with you and fly out and see you sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the last time I saw TaSz, Lars and Wendy came over with Pleasure Venom, which I think was 2019? It might have been 2019 when they came over to the UK. Did a sort of quick tour of the UK. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, when things are straight, you got to get over here.
Yeah, for sure. Right on, man. Well, thanks a lot, for sure.
Not at all. Take care, Alton. All the best.
All right, you too.
Cheers, man.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.